If your garden is anything like mine, at the end of a long winter, your soil is going to look like this. That's not going to work. You don't want to have to dump this every year and go buy new soil. And you don't have to. Getting your existing soil up to snuff ahead of the growing season is as easy as 1, 2, 3: conditioning, amending, sanitizing, and revitalizing. Conditioning, sanitizing. 4. As easy as 1, 2, 3, 4. Conditioning your soil involves improving the structure. If your soil's too compact, water's just going to sit in it and it's not going to drain through, and it's going to strangle or drown your plants. But if your soil is too dry or dusty, the water's just going to flow right through it, not giving your roots any chance to take a drink. And we can easily improve our soil structure just by adding in a few key ingredients based on whatever it is we're looking to achieve. Add organic matter like compost, worm castings, or leaf mold. These are good all-purpose conditioners that can help loosen up compacted soil while helping with water retention. And something like cocoa coir, the broken down husks of coconut shells, is another great way to lighten up your soil and add good water retention. Cocoa coir is my go-to ingredient for seed starting, but it's also a great addition to potting and garden soil. Add in some perlite and vermiculite to really give your soil a boost in water retention and aeration. Some people choose to use peat moss, but a lot of gardeners are switching over to cocoa coir because it's a renewable resource and because the harvesting of peat moss is actually associated with some negative ecological impacts. Similarly, if you want a renewable option to perlite, consider using rice hulls. They work as a great eco-friendly alternative and will help improve soil aeration and drainage. And if you grow primarily in containers or in raised garden beds, just know that the nutrients that your plants need in order to grow big and strong over time are going to gradually deplete. Think about it. Throughout the entire growing season, your soil is feeding your crops the nutrients that they need in order to feed you. And by the end of the growing season, those nutrients that were in the soil at the beginning of the season are long gone. And the key difference between conditioning and amending your soil is that conditioning is focused on the structure of your soil, whereas amending is focused on the nutrition in your soil. And this is where key amendments like slow-release fertilizer, biochar, rock phosphate, bone meal, or well-rotted manure enter the mix. And you want to amend your soil with ingredients that match the nutritional requirements of the plants that you plan to grow in this space. Will this plot be home to a lot of leafy greens, lettuces, and cabbages? Make sure you're bumping up nitrogen levels in the soil to feed the leaves. Well-rotted manure, blood meal, or even some coffee grounds will do the trick. If this is your space for carrots, radishes, or beets, digging some bone meal into this soil will make them very happy. And compost is also a great soil amendment, even though it isn't very nutrient dense. What it helps to do most is to get the microbial activity going in your soil. All the beneficial bacteria and fungi in your compost can do heaps of the heavy lifting in making your garden happy. Another way we want to take care of our soil is to eliminate the harmful pathogens and weed seeds that are lurking beneath the surface. Something as simple as laying a clear plastic sheet over your garden bed will help kick off a process called solarization. Solarization is a way to use the sun's energy to rid your garden soil of unwanted weeds, bugs, and microbes. Laying a sheet of plastic over your soil on a sunny day will trap in heat and moisture, causing what's known as the greenhouse effect. This will heat up the temperature of the soil to levels that are too high for pests and bacteria to survive, and will heat up any weed seeds enough to render them non-viable. Now, of course, this will also eliminate the beneficial organisms that are in your soil, which is why it's super important to mix in compost and leaf mold into your conditioning and amending of your garden soil. That way you'll be reintroducing your garden's microbiome to the bed. And if you've got a lot of earthworms, don't worry, they'll move out temporarily as the soil gets too toasty for them, but they'll quickly move back in once things cool off. Solarization also works for your container soil, but you want to do a little bit more than just put some plastic on top. Dump your container soil into a large trash bag, tie it off, and let it bake in the sun for a few days. Check your soil's temperature every day just to keep track of how things are heating up. During solarization, you can expect your soil's temperature to increase at minimum 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. Probably a whole lot more than that, especially if you have good exposure to sunlight, which this bag does. Now I'm just starting out here and my soil is just over 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So I should expect that at the end of solarization, this soil should be cooking at least 100, probably closer to 110 or 115 degrees Fahrenheit. More than enough to do the job of solarization, get rid of all the nasty business that I don't want in my soil, and get things ready for conditioning and amendment. And if you're not finding a lot of luck with consecutive sunny days, or you don't want to use plastic in order to naturally bake your soil, you could always, literally bake your soil. You'll have to do it in batches, but get some soil onto a sheet pan and pop it into an oven set to 180 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, or around 90 degrees Celsius. Let it bake for around 30 minutes, and then be very careful removing it, and then let it sit and come back to room temperature before handling. This is actually a pretty decent method if you have a small amount of soil that you're working with. Also, if you don't mind that the house is going to smell like the garden for the next couple of days. Another way to sanitize your soil in small areas is to use hydrogen peroxide. In a spray bottle, create a mixture of 4 parts water to 1 part hydrogen peroxide. Spray the mixture generously over the surface. This will kill any fungi, bacteria, or other pests that might be lurking in your container's soil. Now, it's not a great solution for a larger space, say a garden bed, but for a small pot like this, it'll absolutely do the trick. In fact, this is a method that's used by a lot of microgreens growers in order to keep mold at bay. And finally, focus on revitalizing, boosting your soil's overall health. Add in worm castings to replenish microbes and nutrients in container soil. Or if you're revitalizing a bed, consider introducing some worms. Mix in some mycorrhizal fungi, which helps out your plant's roots by increasing nutrient uptake, protecting against disease, and could aid tolerance of adverse conditions like drought, high temperatures, or acidic environments. And yes, compost makes another appearance here. There's a reason they call it the gardener's gold. Take a 5-gallon bucket, some water, and a shovelful of compost, and brew some compost tea. This is another great way to revitalize your soil by introducing beneficial microbes. It'll take about a week to brew, and then you can just water it into your soil. I hope this was helpful as you continue to prep for the coming season. Try some of these things out, and maybe, just maybe, you'll never have to buy soil again. Happy growing.